Hi there people, it's Pyxcore, and I'm sure you remember the last time that I talked about a Mario game and the incident occurred. Oh, come on! Pretty traumatic, am I right? Well, not today, because I assure you that this is Super Mario Bros. 2. Every time.
Super Mario Bros. 2. Which one, you ask? Good question. The second one. Super Mario Bros. Was released in 1985 and was a smash hit. There was one problem with the game. It was too short. Yes, I'd like 7 more hours of this, please. See, Sonic the Hedgehog had a similar problem. There was Green Hill Zone, and then the game stopped being good. After Green Hill Zone, the game just dragged on with 5 more zones, or 6 if you're a lunatic who considers Final Zone to be its own zone and not just a glorified boss fight. Ah! So in 1992, Sega began quickly working on a sequel. Well, 2. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 released in 1992, and Sonic CD released in 1993. Which was the sequel to Sonic 1? Yes. See, Sonic the Hedgehog built upon the foundation of the first game's good levels, i.e. Green Hill, Spring Yard, and Starlight. It said, why slow the player down when we could just keep them going fast? And while we're at it, let's give them some fancy new abilities. And Sonic CD took the bad levels from the first game, i.e. almost all of them, touched them up, didn't change the design of Sonic at all, and focused on exploration. Sonic CD is basically just Sega of Japan's take on a Sonic the Hedgehog sequel and is considered the true sequel by many. Sonic 2 is basically America's take on the Sonic the Hedgehog sequel and is considered the true sequel by many. Now, what does that have to do with Mario? Take a guess. It's because Mario and Sonic are rivals, but also because Mario and Sonic sequels both had similar developments. Right after Super Mario Bros. Was released in 1985, Nintendo began working on a sequel. In 1986, Super Mario Bros. 2 was released for the Famicom Disk System. Something I failed to talk about in my Console Wars episode was that the NES got a floppy disk add-on. Well, the Famicom did. I smell another tangent. The Nintendo Entertainment System was Nintendo's third-generation system, but in Japan it was known as the Famicom and sported a completely different design, completely different controllers, and completely different looking cartridges. And in 1986, Nintendo had released the Famicom Disk System with games being on discs rather than cartridges. The launch title for the system... expansion? Add-on? The launch title for the SysBan-on was Legend of Zelda. Yeah, look how that turned out. Definitely didn't become a successful franchise with 2 critically acclaimed games on one system. But in North America, we didn't get the game on a floppy disk, we got it on a regular cartridge. Why? Because the disk system never came to the US. And yet the Virtual Boy did. Now, this was likely because neither of the NES designs lent themselves very well to any add-ons. Yeah, somehow the design works better as a drink holder than it does a video game console. The point to all this is that Super Mario Bros. 2 launched in 1986 in Japan to an overwhelming I don't know. I can't find the general consensus of the game from its release anywhere online, but here's what I do know. A man named Howard Phillips was the man entrusted with playing Nintendo's games and seeing which ones could be localized. And before I talk about what he thought about Super Mario Bros. 2, I have to talk about something else. See, while I can't find the general consensus of the quality of the game, I could find some other things that people thought about it. Many thought it looked and felt like a ROM hack of Super Mario Bros. The graphics were basically the same, the characters the same, the only different thing was the texture of the ground. Anyway, back to Howard. Good old Howie here was looking through some games and a certain one caught his eye. Super Mario Bros. 2. He popped the game in and hated it. It was stupid difficult and he died right away. Phillips couldn't believe that Shigeru Miyamoto would design a game this challenging. As I've said before, it's good to have a challenge, but some games are just sadistic. So, Howard Phillips and Minoru Arakawa, the head of Nintendo of America at the time, decided that the game should not be released in North America and Nintendo would need to make a brand new Super Mario Bros. Sequel. Luckily, Nintendo had already been working with this Japanese TV network called Fuji TV in making a certain game. Nintendo had worked with Fuji TV in the past to make All Night Nippon Super Mario Bros. This game was an official ROM hack of Super Mario Bros. All Night Nippon was a radio program owned by Fuji. All Night Nippon Super Mario Bros. Was just the base game with the host's face over the characters. But in 1987, in collaboration with Fuji TV, Nintendo released Yume Kojo Doki Doki Panic, which roughly translates to Dream Factory Heart Pounding Panic. The characters in this game were as follows: Imogen, Mama, Papa, and Lena. The villain of the game was a giant toad named Wart. But when Super Mario Bros. 2 wasn't going to come to North America, Nintendo took Doki Doki Panic and turned it into Super Mario Bros. 2. You know Shy Guys? Yeah, those little guys in masks who appear in Mario games, they first appeared in Doki Doki Panic. Yep, Imogen was turned into Mario, Mama was turned into Luigi.
Mama? Mama Luigi?
Papa was turned into Toad, and Lena was turned into Princess Toadstool, Princess Peach's name in America. And Wart. What happened to Wart? Was he turned into Bowser? No. He was just Ward. So what happened to the Japanese version of Super Mario Bros. 2? It was released in the US eventually as Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, and the American version, it was released in Japan as Super Mario USA. Some consider the Japanese version to be the true Mario 2, as it was first and it was closer to the original game. Some consider the American version to be the true Mario 2, as it introduced many iconic things to the series, such as Luigi's high jump and Shy Guys. I think they're both the true sequels, and they're both the worst of the classic Mario games. Now, by classic Mario, I mean the two Mario 2s, Super Mario 3, and Super Mario World. And the two Mario 2s are pretty good games, but I just like every other entry better. And both games have been re-released numerous times, so they're pretty easy to find on modern systems.
Well, that's all I have to say about those two games and the first game. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll be playing this collection I found that has all of the versions of Super Mario Bros. 2 on it. Turns out it was actually just LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga for Nintendo DS systems!